Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by a very special guest. She is a workshop facilitator and the author of Spaghetti on the Wall, Ms. Kristan Swan. How you doing today, Kristan?
I am doing great. Thank you, Ryan. How about you?
It's been a great day so far. Can't complain.
Well, good. Well, I think we're about to have a great conversation, so maybe it's about to get better.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm ready to kind of dive in because I kind of found what you do is pretty fascinating.
Well, let's dive in there. Where do you want to start?
So the number one question the audience probably wondering, who is Kristan Swan?
Oh gosh, it is. So as you mentioned, I am a workshop facilitator, which kind of just scratches the surface and really is the career at this moment of my life. And there's been so many different jobs and careers along the way. And I would say that I am a person who is kind of endlessly curious. So I'm always looking to learn. I love other people, so I'm looking to learn from other people. I'm always curious about myself. I feel like that I spent a lot of time kind of just not quite making choices that weren't really in alignment with who I was. But I also was kind of always in a rush and wasn't willing to take the time to get to know myself. So I feel like at this moment, I feel really good about kind of all the twists and turns that have landed me here. And certainly, some of them have not been that pleasant along the way.
I think we all have those moments, though.
Yes.
So you hit on that a little bit of you didn't take the time to figure out who you were.
No.
I mean, I think that's a problem with a lot of people. I mean, I know that used to be me too a lot, did not knowing exactly who I was. So I'd rush in to make poor decisions and just go down the wrong path. How can people slow down and take time to actually learn about themselves?
Yeah, that I think that is kind of the number one thing that really can change your life for the better is taking that time to get to know yourself. And I personally do a journaling practice. You mentioned I have spaghetti on the wall, which is something that I use, and I use that every day. And I do that for about 10 or 15 minutes. It's not a whole big long thing. But I think even simpler than a journaling practice is we get so much information, right, with how we feel. I mean, we can tell when we're feeling tense or I find sometimes when I'm nervous, I'm holding my breath, right? So, or we're kind of these wonderful information absorbing and giving machines. Well, not machines, we're obviously humans, but we just have so much capacity. And so I think if you are willing just to even pause for a breath, you will get so much information about what is happening and what's where you're at. If you're feeling like you're really engaged with what you might be in the middle of taking a class, right? And you either you check in with yourself and you say, hey, I mean, ask yourself the question, is this something that I'm really engaging with? Or, do I find myself tuning out? And then if the answer is I'm tuning out, then get curious again. I mean, I think it's a lot to do with getting curious with yourself, being willing to ask yourself questions, right? And that there is so much emphasis on external fixes, right? That I don't think we do enough. We kind of don't value the information that we have right within ourselves. as much as I wish we all did, as much as I wish I did, right? You mentioned, kind of also having that rushing. I mean, I literally, it's like I felt like, I've seen this image one time. I can't remember where it was, but it's like this giant clock chasing me, right? And it's like, what in the world was that? I mean, it was, I mean, I think it was partly kind of the way I was brought up. It was probably, also related to school and friends and all that, that there's just this sense of that everything is supposed to be done in a certain amount of time, which is often so arbitrary,
Yeah. So you're a self-described experiential learner. What does that mean?
Yes. So that means that, so you hear that expression, ready, aim, fire. For myself, I'm like ready, fire, aim, meaning that I love, like I mentioned, I'm curious. I love to try new things and learn new things. I like people, and sometimes that has led me to say yes when probably yes wasn't quite the right answer, or not in that moment, right? So as a result, I have said yes to a lot of things, and that means that sometimes I get myself in over my head. Whether it's, overcommitting or committing to a project that wasn't kind of the right fit, saying yes. I mean, I feel like I'm a lifelong entrepreneur, and I think that whole kind of yes, that knee-jerk yes that I had, which in part was people pleasing, right? I mean, let's just name it. It's like I wanted to be like, oh yeah, of course I'll do that. And so kind of you combine that with an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I ended up doing so many things that turned actually into careers, because somebody came to me and said, oh, I need you to do this, and I think you'd be really good at it. And, and so it's kind of flattering to have someone say that to you. And so, there I am. Yes. And then the next thing I know, years later, I'm doing this thing, which, I mean, I'm okay at, but is it really the thing for me? Right. I mean, I feel like I had a landscape design career for over 10 years or something like that. And I mean, I really enjoyed it. There were parts of it that were a good fit for me. I loved working with the clients. I loved, creating beautiful spaces. I liked spending time outdoors. So, I mean, it's not like, I'm not saying that it's all bad, but literally the way that 10 plus year stint started is because I had been working on my own backyard and just kind of doing a little bit, and having neighbors come over and say, hey, I like what you did here. Will you come over to my house and give me some pointers? And so I was doing that for so long. And then finally I thought, oh gosh, I should probably make a business out of this. And so there I am, I'm doing this thing. And then finally I got to a point where I realized I like this, but this isn't really my thing, right?
Yeah, I think we've all had those moments like, man, how did we get from here to here? And like, can I turn back around and make a detour back?
Right. And I also, I mean, when I first got out of college, I had to figure out how to, support myself. And so you obviously say yes to a lot of things in an effort to do that. And I think that, there's a really, I think that in some ways that was a great time to say yes. And that was a great time to be trying different things. But then the piece that was missing for me is I never at one point just kind of stepped back for a second, like I'm talking about, and took that pause and said to myself, okay, so I now know I've worked in the restaurant industry. I've now worked in, I've done some retail. I worked for a union for a little while. I've worked, I've done all these, like, what is the information that I've got? I've been gathering data points, right? But data, as we know, is only valuable when you spend time thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I just was like going to the next thing. Yeah.
What inspired you to become a business coach then?
Well, in fact, it was because I was doing this landscape design work. I was working with, and I still have, I know a lot of the people that I worked with, and I had the best clients, and I really, so I don't mean to make it sound like it was a horrible way to spend, quite a big chunk of my life. But what happened is when I first started my business as a landscape designer, I was just operating in my own bubble. I told you how it started. It basically was neighbors saying, and so I didn't really know other people that did this work. I just kind of was doing my thing. And which on some ways is good, right? Because I was kind of doing it the way I wanted to be doing it. I was making a ton of mistakes. I never had really had a full-on business. So boy, talk about experiential learning. Ooh, the hard way. But then I eventually got involved with a trade organization that supported other landscape designers. And so I started meeting other people in my field, and I was meeting people that, wow, the work that they were doing was so beautiful and so creative, and just, I admired their work so much. And as I got to know them better, I kind of got to peek behind the curtain, right? And I realized a lot of these folks that were doing just incredible, incredible work, the business side of their business was not very good. And I thought to myself, what I was starting to understand is I really loved supporting people's success, right? And I loved, part of that is that people pleasing, like I wanted people to be happy, but I love this idea of having people be successful. And I very specifically, when I use the word success, I don't mean it as that wallpaper word that where we're just thinking about, that you get a big fat bank account. I think that success is something that every single person, it deserves you taking the time to figure out what success means to you. And I thought, what if I could take all that I've learned just through, some really, not very wise business choices, but that I learned, what if I could take that and help these people that are so creative and doing such amazing work, and help them build sustainable businesses? Sustainable meaning businesses that would continue on as long as they wanted them to go on, and that they wouldn't be completely burned out or upside down financially or anyways, right? And so that's how I started doing business coaching. Is I saw this need. Now, the funny thing about it is it wasn't, it was not a smooth transition, because a lot of the people that I thought, oh gosh, you're going to hire me, because I know you're going to see that this is such a great idea that I just, I want to help you. Yeah, not so much. I mean, a lot of the people that, part of it was they saw business coaching as an expense, right? They didn't see it as an investment. Some people just thought, well, I'm not supposed, like, there also was kind of a funny mindset that they, why not let them learn this the hard way themselves? And I mean, believe me, I'm all about learning by experience, but there's certain things like you don't have to go through that. So, I mean, it took me a while to find my legs as a business coach, and I loved the work. What I realized is that I kind of expanded beyond that initial group of other designers that I thought I would be working with. And what eventually kind of became clear is I was great at working with people who had started their business. They were an independent business owner. They had something. They had their the way I describe it is professional services, right? So they had a real talent around this thing that they did, whether it was design or could even be, I had people within the wellness and medical industry, people in, investment and insurance. So they had this whole, just wealth of knowledge around this area. And they had started a business not really thinking about, gosh, like how to run a business is a whole nother set of skills. So that's kind of where I came in.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that, where people look at coaching as kind of like taboo a little bit, like you said, another expense, instead of, hey, these people have already experienced what I'm going through and can help me through avoid my blind spots, notice my blind spots before I get to them, and then help me overcome things without having to actually go through them like I would have to go through.
Yes. I mean, there is, I think that we have a little bit, there's a lot of mythology in the United States, right, around the person who bootstrapped it and figured out how to do things on their own, and they were this incredible success. And yes, some of that is true, but most people, most people don't become successful by themselves, right? I mean, so many people that if you look at some of the biggest success stories in our country, it's like, I mean, they may have come from wealth, but also they had mentors, right? They had people that were, I mean, essentially unpaid coaches, right?
Yeah.
That were guiding them along. And so I think that there is, and I think that this is something that would be really relevant for the moment in time that we're at right now too, is think about asking for help. Think about, I still encourage when I talk to young people, especially, like, if you're kind of trying to figure out what your next step is, do informational interviews, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be a very formal engagement like coaching or apprenticeship or mentorship even, right? I mean, there are plenty of people who are just willing to tell you their story, and there's so much value, right? I mean, I think about stories are, and I mean, that's essentially the work I do now, right? Is giving space for people to connect and learn from each other and learn about themselves through their storytelling and story hearing.
Yeah. So what made you make that jump from business coaching to more life coaching and spiritual coaching?
Yeah, what happened is after the pandemic, I was pretty exhausted. It took me it took me a little bit to realize. I think I was kind of riding the high of when we, got out of being in lockdown and could start doing stuff again. But literally about a year after that, I just realized I was pretty tired. I had worked really hard with my clients during COVID, which was such an honor and pleasure. And I'm so grateful to say that everyone did well and survived, and in some cases did very well. But I felt like, I'm a little tired out. I'm not sure that I think I need, I think I need to think about a shift here. So I actually went back to school and got a master's in education. And so I thought there was like part of me that was like, oh, I could teach. But I've also been an entrepreneur for so long that moving into academia was just, I realized that was probably not going to be a good fit for me. So in the meantime, I worked on a project. I helped a former colleague and friend, she wanted to write a book about her nonprofit that she had founded. And so I was like, okay. So I spent some time helping with that. And again, I was getting better at this point. I mean, I'm always learning along the way, right? And I'm getting better at this point, both in realizing that I don't want to do business coaching anymore, and I'm getting better in figuring out, okay, what are the things that I like though? And what I do like, as I mentioned, is supporting people's success, and that can be in a personal way, right? Kind of how could each one of us be more fully ourselves, right? Because I think that we're all pretty amazing. Sometimes we don't realize that because we might be just ingesting so much external, noise about all the things we have to fix about ourselves. But I just thought, what if I could what would be the one thing I would want to do? And the one thing that came to me was, I want people to have more conversations with each other, and I want people to get to know themselves better.
Yeah, that's definitely a skill that a lot of people are lacking, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like so I started thinking about, what I wanted to do. And I had years ago, I had done a small group, and we had done this exercise called your spiritual autobiography. And it always stuck with me as this really great, way of reflecting on your life. And when I originally taught it, it was in conjunction with a formal church. But I thought about, like, what if I took that idea, and what if I expanded upon it and made it, non-denominational, really just kind of thinking about my own spirituality and thinking about kind of what does that mean for me? And really, in the most kind of basic terms, it means that I believe that there is something bigger than myself, right? And so I started with this idea of discovering your spiritual autobiography as a workshop, and started doing that. And it was interesting because it took people a little bit to kind of relax right into the workshop, because first of all, people were like, well, what is this? Like, what are we doing? And which, fair enough. I mean, you're giving your time, and you're giving some, I mean, you're spending resources, right? Time, money, energy on this workshop that I'm offering you. But it was funny because I would describe the spiritual autobiography, which is a written, it's about 1,000 or 1,500 words. And I would tell people, if they were asking this at the very beginning of the workshop, I'd say, let's, hang with me a little bit here, because we're going to do some exercises that are going to help kind of fill in these pieces for you. But I would also encourage people to I think about a spiritual autobiography as a snapshot in time. So the one that if you said, Ryan, you're like, okay, Kristan, after we stop this, I, challenge you to write your spiritual autobiography. And I would do it. And it would be so different than the very last one I wrote. And it would be different probably from the one that I might write, next month, next year, whatever, because it's really meant to be kind of, where are you right now? And for me, I think kind of that spirituality is deeply linked to kind of the learning, right? And the curiosity that I was talking about. And so there's always going to be things that are kind of adding to my experience and to my understanding of myself and the world around me. So it's like, for some people, spirituality is directly related to nature, and then I have other participants who are deeply religious. So it's going to be much more kind of specific to what their faith tradition is.
Interesting. So I'll kind of walk us through that. How do you kind of get someone to lead them through that, to write it out?
Well, we start by, I like to, when I start a new workshop, I mean, obviously there's the kind of that introduction phase, right? I mean, whenever you go into a situation, right, and it's a group of people that don't know each other, or even if they do know each other, but you're kind of setting the stage for what is going to happen in this space. So I like to ask questions I like to do icebreakers that are less about you just giving your CV or your resume, right? So from the get-go, I'm going to be asking something like, I might ask about kind of a time for them to reflect on a time when, like a birthday or a time when they were celebrated, right? And I'll have them go through, so I have them pick the event. And then I ask them, use your 5 senses to think about that event, right? So what are you hearing? What are you seeing? If it's a birthday, like, is there a birthday cake? What does it taste like? If it's, a party by the ocean, describe that smell, right? And so it's a way for it, kind of how it ends up pulling out several different things at the same time. It ends up, because it's got that structure of helping people go through the memory through your 5 senses. It takes a little bit of pressure off of people who have just maybe, people get intimidated by the blank page. And so it gives some structure, right? It's giving them some specific prompts. So it's nice and guiding in that way. We are picking something, hopefully, I mean, in theory, you're being celebrated. So hopefully it's a happy memory, right? I mean, we're not going for a pain point. So again, kind of the nervous system is relaxing, right? I mean, you're not feeling too uptight. And especially if we're doing this early in the workshop, it helps you. So it helps you share a story that hopefully you can relax into, that you can think about fully, and that is something that you would be comfortable sharing with a group of relatively new people, right? So, I mean, so we kind of do different exercises like that, where I'm asking you to reflect on your own life, And I'm going to be using different modalities, essentially, whether it's the senses or thinking about kind of a conversation, right? So thinking in terms of a connection with another person. So I'm using all these different little modalities, I guess is what I call them, to help people retrieve memories and also put them in a way that they are shareable amongst the group.
Interesting. What other kinds of services do you offer?
Well, I mentioned the journal before. So I have my journal that I love it. I do it every day. So this is something that you can buy on my website. And the way that I like to suggest that people do this is that it's an everyday practice. As I mentioned, it's not meant to be, 10 or 15 minutes. It is prompted, again, that idea that it helps you walk you through the journaling practice. And I love that because I think for me, spaghetti on the wall, I created it for my clients. But of course, I mean, when we are doing this kind of stuff where it's like, I'm the one who really needed it.
Yeah.
And, and what it is it's really an invitation to get some awareness around yourself. And part of the reason why what I really was noticing in my business coaching clients is how often they were coming to me with kind of the same issues, right? That there were these patterns and they were the things that were causing friction in their business or in their lives. And how often are we all participating in patterns that are not probably healthy for us or are not really, we say that we want to be doing this, but yet we kind of keep doing this. And so what I love about this particular journaling practice is how helpful for me. I mean, I other people have said that it's helpful for them, but I want to stick with that. What I can say, most emphatically is it really helped me recognize patterns of behavior and also helped me get some awareness around kind of the way my decision making process, right? Like where I was making choices that were, because we always have a choice, right? I mean, in every single day, sometimes we have choice overload, right? Decision fatigue. But it was so helpful not only in recognizing when to pay attention to the choices that really matter, but then also how to recognize my own kind of pitfalls around my decision-making practice. So for me, awareness is just, I mean, once I'm aware of something, it's really hard for me to put it back in the box, right? And it moves me forward. It awareness for me inspires change. And I am not looking to change people. So that's up to, each individual. But I will say, we live in the attention economy, right? Why not give the thing that really deserves your attention, your life, a closer look?
Yeah. I love how you touched on patterns. That's something I've noticed too, just by talking with so many people and then working with clients of my own, like with helping them upgrade their mindset. It's like everybody has these patterns that are holding them back. We all have them. I mean, and they're the one things that stop us from getting from one level to the next is just like identifying them patterns and getting rid of them.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, I mean, one of my wonderful, I consider her a mentor at this point. She was she was my therapist for a while when I was going through a divorce that was just pretty, I mean, it was very devastating. She really helped me through. And it was interesting because I didn't always listen to her. I wish I had in hindsight, but I didn't always listen because sometimes I just wasn't ready. And she was, I think, it was the first time I had ever gone to therapy. And so it was like, to me, I had always kind of seen the movie version where, you know, it's like you just talk and then the therapist is like making notes or sometimes falling asleep or whatever. But she was super interactive. Like she's like, this is what, and I really appreciated that. But I remember one of the things that she would say, and I do find this true both in myself and also working with clients and just being with people, is we all kind of have certain things that are our thing, right? That gets us hung up. And, you know, as we learn more about ourselves, as we learn more tools to effectively kind of manage that thing, you know, I mean, for some of my clients, it was their, you know, relationship to money, right? So that was something that was deeply, deeply embedded in who they were. And so we could work on that and they could gain some awareness, and we would get, you know, we would have some progress, and then it would come up again. And it would come up, I mean, as time went on, I feel like it would come up less frequently. And it would kind of show itself in maybe a slightly different way, but it's just funny. So I do think we all have kind of a certain, you know, couple of things that are always, I mean, I mentioned people pleasing for me. I still have to be I'm better at it, but I still have to be mindful. And you know, I get myself in less trouble now, right? But it's you know, it's pretty hardwired in me. So I gotta pay attention to that.
Yeah. How many people do you see like that are wired with fear of a success?
Oh gosh. I honestly, I think more people are afraid of success than they are failure, right? And I think that pure and simple, think about how many people, you know, myself included, right, that I've been afraid to make choices because, and they were the right choices. Um, but it was essentially asking me, I could either choose, which I did in many instances until I didn't, but I could choose with the uncomfortable that was familiar, right? And so failure kind of falls into that category, right? I mean, I think all of us have had failure, so it's familiar. We know that we don't like it, doesn't feel good. It kind of sucks, frankly, sometimes, most of the time. And success is, I mean, it's unknown. I mean, there's certain things that people think of, oh, if I'm successful, you know, I won't have any more debt, or I won't have, you know, I'll have money to do this, or I can expand my business to that. And all of those things, even though those are kind of known things, you still don't know what your life is going to be like once that happens. And so I think it really, in some ways, is that fear of success is deeply tied to the leap of faith, essentially, that you are being asked to make when you say, I'm going to be successful. And again, I would encourage everyone, be clear about what success looks like for you. But it's that unknown. We don't know if it's gonna, I mean, I think for some people, they worry that it's gonna change their relationships, right? I think a lot of people worry that if they're successful, they're going to have to work that much harder. I think that they are worried that that they'll be successful and then they won't be able to keep up, right? I mean, there's like all these things, but they're all things that we're just making up because we don't know.
Yeah. How would journaling help with that process of like stepping out of your comfort zone and showing gratitude? Like, so you could actually go for those dreams.
Well, I think for me, the biggest shift happened when I was willing to move out of fear setting, essentially, right? I mean, doing that whole thing of gaming out that worst case scenario, right? For me, a lot of times when I was younger and probably for longer than I would care to admit, it was always about, can I survive the worst case scenario, right? And at some point, I made this shift, and I can't even really remember what that thing was, but I was willing to say, okay, well, I mean, it's kind of like flipping a coin, right? I mean, there's maybe tails is the worst case scenario, but I mean, it could be heads, right? Which could be the best case scenario. And again, that kind of unknown, right? That leap of faith, so to speak, is that best case scenario. In some ways, I don't know what that looks like. But with journaling, the thing that you can pay attention to is you begin to realize, again, kind of that collection of data, right? And the really important part of collecting it is paying attention to it and reviewing it. Is if you start to think about those moments when you were concerned, you were worried, you thought, okay, the worst case scenario is going to happen. Okay, so how often did that happen, right? Usually it doesn't happen. And actually something happened instead that we didn't even really see coming, right? So by journaling and having that place where you are actually paying attention to those moments and you are documenting them, and you don't even necessarily have to go back and reread it. My journaling is all about pen on paper, and there's something that, there's a nice kinesthetic, right, physical quality about it that helps it, become more embodied. But that's why journaling is so powerful, is you start to recognize all these moments where worst case scenario didn't happen. And in fact, this thing that I could have never seen coming, I couldn't have planned for it. I wouldn't have even known to ask for it. That's what happened.
Yeah. Do you have any other tips for our listeners about journaling and maybe like some prompts to get them started?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a gratitude journal, right? Or gratitude journaling. A lot of people do that, and that's a great way to, if you're feeling like, oh, I just don't want to write a whole lot, and I kind of want something really simple. The whole writing 3 things that you're grateful for today each night is a great way to kind of close out the day and just really kind of, because I mean, essentially what you have to do is you have to take a moment and reflect on your day, right? Which is kind of some of that stillness or that pause that we were talking about earlier. The other thing I love to do is I like to think about, before I have one of the things I do in the morning, because I like to journal in the morning, and before I even start talking a whole lot or anything, I will just write down a couple of sentences around kind of what was on my mind when I woke up, right? Did I wake up thinking, oh my gosh, I've got such a busy day. I've got a million things to do. Did I wake up kind of, maybe I had some kind of crazy dream that I'm feeling a little bit like, whew, I'm a little out of sorts. Or maybe I just woke up and I'm like, oh God, I could so use another hour of sleep, right? I mean, just write down literally what is in your head. And then what I ask myself, the part 2 to this is, okay, knowing what I just wrote down and also kind of thinking about my day ahead, how do I want to, how do I want to meet the day, right? What is the energy that I want to bring to this day? And if, on those mornings where I wake up thinking, oh man, I could have given, for an extra half an hour of sleep, that would have been amazing. I will say to myself, okay, so, this is what you got. You got to get up. So can you be a little bit more patient with yourself and others today, knowing that you might be a little crabby and short? On those days that I feel like I have so much to do, right? I wake up and I'm already, it's like I've already had 3 cups of coffee because I'm just like, ooh, what I say to myself is, those are the days where I really remind myself, you will not get more done by multitasking or letting yourself kind of get distracted by the overwhelm of it all. So this is a day for you to be, you're going to be hyper focused today, and you're going to give each task or each project your full attention for however much time you're going to give it, and then you'll move on to the next one. So for those days where, like I said, I feel like I'm just juggling everything in my head, I'm like, okay, you're going to put down the balls and you're going to pick up one at a time and give it your complete focus. So I think that could be like a great way to kind of start your day too. So, I mean, there's kind of, for those people who are thinking, I want a starter, and then those folks who want something that's just a little bit more, a little more soothing at the end of the day. I guess one last thing is, again, I mean, I feel like we all have so much going on up here, right? So I love, and this you can do any time of day, and it's so great. And it just feels so good, is I just give yourself permission, just do a brain dump and just get a piece of paper and just write down everything that is swirling around in your head. And don't worry about organizing it. This isn't about making a bullet journal or this isn't about putting your grocery list over here and your goal, your year-end goals over here and your daily task. I mean, this is just about literally, it's for me, I have this drawer in the kitchen, right, that just gets all kind of the weird random stuff is shoved in there. This is like taking that drawer that's in my kitchen that my brain sometimes looks like and just dumping it. And then after you do the dump, then you can actually start sorting through it if you want to.
That's a pretty good analogy, right there. How can people get a hold of you?
I have a website, kristanswan.com. And as I mentioned, my journal is for sale there. You also can see upcoming classes. My classes now are all in person because, as I mentioned, I'm really about getting people in person, talking to each other face to face. And I do go on the road to do retreats. So, and if you want a retreat, reach out to me and I will find out a way to make it happen close to you. So that's a great way. And then also if you like listening to little snippets, there's all those socials that are out there that I'm on. And again, Kristan Swan is kind of the best way to search me.
Awesome. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I guess the one thing that, I mean, we talked about this, but I just want to reiterate that we are in a culture and a society that is constantly suggesting that we have to fix ourselves and that we need to, do all of these hacks or take these tips, and I even gave you tips, so I guess I'm guilty of it too. But I just want to say, you are each person out there, and I mean this sincerely, you are amazing. And if nothing else, like, take 3 breaths and just kind of allow yourself to be yourself and to recognize how amazing that you are, just in this moment, exactly how you are.
Nice. Okay, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
Oh, I would say you keep going. And I know that I wish I had a better way to say this. And again, I hope that you heard me during our conversation here, where I recognize that when you're in the middle of it, it just feels so icky and so hard. And I don't want to minimize that. And I want to say, if you can take one step, whatever that step is, remember, you always have a choice. And sometimes we don't like what our choices are, but when we start making choices that are the choices that are aligned with who we are and who we really know ourselves to be, then our choices start getting better. So your choice in a moment when you're feeling very lowly may be to stay in bed or get out of bed. And probably getting out of bed is going to be the right choice. So just keep moving forward, because it will get better. I promise you.
Great advice. Well, Kristan, thank you for coming on here and sharing your insight and knowledge with all of us.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate you just being so generous with your time and creating this space for people to hopefully learn from our stories and experiences, right? I mean, you don't have to do everything the hard way. You can learn from other people.
Yeah, it's usually easier that way than the experiential learning, because I've been down that path too, and sometimes that pain hurts.
I know, right? Lots of bumps and bruises.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.